Imagine laws that just, change with the turn of a river.
Right. Or needing animal skins and beer just to get a book.
Exactly. And picture a ruler, maybe the most powerful around, who can't even properly write his own name.
That really gives you a glimpse into the Middle Ages, doesn't it?
It really does. So today we're exploring this fascinating era. We're drawing from sources you shared with us, including Susan Wise Bauer's The Story of the World, the Middle Ages.
And we're also keeping in mind the kind of insights offered by channels like Mindful Moments on YouTube.
That's right. They use AI for book analysis, which is pretty interesting, and it really encourages that reflection and critical thinking.
Which is exactly what we need as we navigate this period.
Definitely. So our aim today is to pull out some key insights, maybe some surprising facts, and give you a clearer picture of this transformative time without, overwhelming you.
Okay, let's get started. It's quite something when you think about the Roman Empire, how dominant it was.
And that long piece, the Pax Romana.
Yes, the Pax Romana. It meant safer roads. Trade could actually flourish. For centuries, people could travel those Roman roads and feel relatively secure.
Because of Roman law?
Pretty much, yeah. Strict laws kept things mostly in check. A far cry from what came later in many places.
And the Romans had this very distinct view of people outside their borders, didn't they? The barbarians.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just about different lifestyles, living in tents or eating raw food as the Romans sometimes saw it.
It was deeper than that.
It seems so.
Yeah.
Almost a belief they were fundamentally inferior, less than human in some accounts.
Which must have heavily influenced how they interacted.
No doubt. But eventually, these groups, the Visigoths, the Huns, the Anglo-Saxons, among others, they put immense pressure on the empire.
Leading to invasions and the whole fragmentation of the Western Empire.
Exactly, like the Anglo-Saxon settlement of Britain. That completely reshaped the island.
And eventually led to, England.
Right. But it's interesting, the Roman influence didn't just vanish overnight.
No, that's what I find fascinating. These new kingdoms that sprang up. They often picked up Roman customs.
They did. You see examples of them building houses in a Roman style, taking Roman-style baths, some learning Latin, even converting to Christianity.
So the legacy was still there, even after the political structure crumbled.
Precisely. And amidst all this change, you also get these rulers trying really hard to establish some kind of order, some new laws.
Like Clovis?
Clovis is a great example. He unified the Franks. And his conversion to Christianity, that was huge, politically as well as religiously.
And he created the Salic laws, right? A unified legal code.
Yes, trying to create a stable framework. You might find a specific Salic law, for instance, detailing the penalty if a Roman stole something from a Frank. It shows that effort to create rules for interaction.
Okay, so that's in the West. What about the East? The Byzantine Empire? Justinian.
Justinian. Big ambitions there. He really wanted to reclaim the lost Roman territories in the West.
But he's also known for his legal reforms.
Hugely important. The Code of Justinian. It was this massive effort to collect and organize Roman law, a really ambitious project for such a diverse empire.
And we shouldn't forget Empress Theodora.
Absolutely not. Her strength and resolve were apparently key during that Nika revolt. Legend has it she convinced Justinian not to flee Constantinople.
Quite the power couple, it seems.
You could say that. Then, fast forward a few centuries and you have Charlemagne.
Trying to build a new empire in Europe, consciously looking back to Rome.
Exactly. He pushed for infrastructure, supported learning, really promoted this idea of a renewed Roman Empire.
But the interesting bit is his own literacy, or lack thereof.
Right. Despite these grand imperial plans, his patronage of learning, he himself struggled to read and write. Apparently kept wax tablets by his bed to practice.
It really highlights how different the times were, even for the most powerful. Okay, let's shift a bit to culture and religion. Monasteries were incredibly important, weren't they?
Oh, vital. They were the centers of learning, and crucially, book production.
And making a book back then was something else.
Totally. Think about making parchment. You had to prepare animal skins, soak them in lime, scrape them, stretch them, dry them.
Didn't they use beer in the process, too?
Yes. Treat the skins with beer sometimes. All before a monk could even start writing on it, by hand, word by word. Incredible dedication.
While that's happening, Christianity is spreading.
Yeah.
Like Augustine going to Britain.
Exactly. Figures like Augustine were key in bringing Christianity to places like Anglo-Saxon Britain. And King Ethelbert's reaction, initially quite cautious.
It's not an overnight thing.
No, it took time. Seeds were planted. Meanwhile, over in Arabia, a major new religion is emerging. Islam.
With the revelations to Muhammad.
Yes. Facing initial resistance in Mecca, which led to the Hijra, the migration to Medina, that was a pivotal moment.
And from there, Islamic rule spread across Arabia and then much further.
His teachings about one God, Allah, had a profound impact, forming the basis for a vast civilization.
And that expansion was rapid, wasn't it? Into Spain, North Africa.
Very rapid. And the period of Muslim rule in Spain under the Moors was a time of incredible cultural flourishing.
We're talking major advancements, right? Math, science.
Absolutely. Think about mathematics. The Arabic numerals we still use today came to Europe through them. New crops, irrigation techniques, philosophy, medicine. A real golden age there.
Which then leads us into the whole complex story of the Crusades.
Right. A collision of worlds, really. Driven largely by the religious significance of Jerusalem for Christians in Europe.
Knights heading off to reclaim the Holy Land. But wasn't there an earlier disastrous one, the People's Crusade?
Yes, a poorly organized popular movement that largely ended in tragedy before the main knightly First Crusade even got going properly.
The First Crusade did succeed in capturing Jerusalem, though.
It did, though marked by brutality. But Jerusalem was later recaptured by Saladin.
Who was often described as ruling with more tolerance, comparatively.
Generally, yes. It highlights the intense religious fervor, the conflict, but also the different ways power was wielded. It's a really complex period.
Definitely. Now, beyond the conflicts, what about exploration and trade? That was happening too.
Oh, for sure. You have the Viking voyages, which are remarkable. Leif Erikson reaching North America Vineland, they called it.
Centuries before Columbus. And there's evidence, right, in Newfoundland.
Yes. Archaeological evidence at Lanso Meadows backs up the sagas. Then later, you get the beginnings of the age of exploration, really pushed by Portugal.
Figures like Henry the Navigator sponsoring voyages.
Exactly. Developing navigation techniques, using the astrolabe, the compass, even estimating speed by counting knots on a rope thrown overboard.
Pretty ingenious stuff. And elsewhere in the world. Africa, for instance.
West Africa had powerful kingdoms like Ghana and Mali, thriving on the gold and salt trade across the Sahara.
And Mansa Musa of Mali, his pilgrimage to Mecca became legendary.
Absolutely legendary. The sheer amount of gold he brought, the size of his caravan, it literally put Mali on the map for Europeans in the Middle East, showcased the immense wealth of the kingdom.
And further east, China.
China had periods of incredible innovation and trade, like during the Tang Dynasty. Think silk, sophisticated bureaucracy, art, even early forms of things like chopsticks and ice cream.
Wow, ice cream.
Sort of, yeah. Though later dynasties, like the Ming, sometimes turned more inward, building things like the Forbidden City and limiting foreign contact for periods.
So a really dynamic picture across the globe, not just in Europe. Okay, let's focus back on Europe for daily life. Feudalism is the big one, right?
It's the classic structure we think of. Lords, vassals, knights. A system of mutual obligations based on land.
And the code of chivalry for knights.
Supposedly guiding their conduct, bravery, loyalty, protecting the weak, though reality didn't always match the ideal, of course.
And the life of a serf compared to a noble. Stark contrast.
Immense contrast. A serf was tied to the land, living in maybe a one-room hut, working the lord's fields as well as their own small plot. Basic food, hard labor.
Versus the lord in his castle, feasting.
Right. More comfort, better food, different responsibilities, warfare, administration. And becoming a knight wasn't simple either. It involved years of training, specific rituals.
And we see a parallel warrior class emerging in Japan, too.
Yes, the samurai, with their own strict code Bushido, the way of the warrior, emphasizing loyalty, honor, martial skill. Different contexts, but some similar ideas about a warrior elite.
But these structures, however established, faced huge challenges. The Black Death has to be one of the biggest.
Absolutely devastating. Wiped out a huge portion of Europe's population. Estimates vary, maybe a third, maybe even half in some areas.
And they had no real idea what caused it.
Not really. There were theories about bad air, divine punishment, but no understanding of germ theory. It led to immense social and economic upheaval.
Then you layer on major wars. The 100 Years' War between England and France.
Right, which gave rise to figures like Joan of Arc.
And in England itself, the Wars of the Roses.
That dynastic struggle, the Lancasters and Yorks, leading eventually to the Tudors, and that mystery of the princes in the Tower, still debated today.
And a really pivotal moment, the fall of Constantinople in 1453.
A major turning point. The end of the Byzantine Empire, the Ottoman Turks taking the city, it sent shockwaves through Europe and shifted trade routes.
All these upheavals really set the stage for what comes next, don't they? The Renaissance, the Reformation.
Exactly. And a key catalyst was technology, the invention of the printing press by Gutenberg.
That changed everything for spreading information.
Fundamentally, suddenly, books could be produced relatively quickly and cheaply compared to hand copying. Ideas could spread like wildfire. And engaging with these transformative periods, maybe through resources like mindful moments or our own discussions here, can offer deeper perspectives.
Absolutely. And then you have the Reformation. Martin Luther challenging the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Questioning indulgences, promoting the idea that people could read the Bible for themselves, every man his own priest, essentially, led to the rise of Protestantism and huge religious and political shifts.
And alongside this, early glimmers of the scientific revolution.
You get Copernicus suggesting the Earth isn't the center of the universe.
Which was radical.
Hugely radical. And Galileo later using the telescope to make observations that supported Copernicus, challenging centuries of accepted wisdom.
So it really feels like the end of one era and the turbulent beginning of another.
A period of massive, multifaceted change, definitely.
Wow. Okay, so we've journeyed through quite a few centuries there, from empires falling to new ideas rising, encountering some really remarkable figures and dramatic events.
It's a lot to take in, the sheer contrast, the grandeur of Constantinople versus the quiet, painstaking work of a monk making parchment.
It really makes you think.
Yeah.
And consider how these distant times, these different worlds, still echo in our own world today.
They absolutely do, in ways we might not always realize.
So, if this exploration has sparked your curiosity, definitely subscribe for more analyses like this. Please share it with anyone else you think might find this historical journey interesting.
And you can find links in the show notes, maybe to purchase Susan Wise Bauer's book, The Story of the World, or to check out the Mindful Moments YouTube channel we mentioned.
Most importantly, though, keep thinking critically. Question the information you come across. Draw your own conclusions. Look for different viewpoints.
That critical engagement is key.
So, what aspects of the Middle Ages really stood out to you today? What questions do you still have? Let that curiosity keep guiding you.